Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Singles Connect podcast. We are back here again this week. I hope you all had a good week and it went really well. As usual, we're here to chop it up. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. OJ Oyinkansola. She's an amazing woman, wonderful woman, has a lot going on. We have to catch up, and we have the wonderful Stacy. Stacy, say hi.
Hi.
Yes, and it's always a great time with you ladies. It's always a great time hanging out with you ladies, talking about these challenges and, some of the things and also the great things that we like to discuss when it comes to singles. And we all know how it is in the singles dating world today. And today we are going to be talking about a very interesting topic. And that topic is fighting the flesh.
I have my pen because I need to take notes. I need notes fighting the flesh.
So that topic is called fighting the flesh. And this is one of those topics that, in Nigeria we say, we are shaking the table. But yeah, so yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. And I'm just going to jump right to it. And Stacy, do you want to start on when you hear, this topic, say fighting the flesh, what comes to mind? What comes to mind when you hear this topic?
Okay. Well, good afternoon, our Singles Connect community. I guess welcome back, as Akan said, to another episode and to a enlightening conversation, and probably one that I don't think is controversial. I think we're living in a different time and a different stage in our culture where a lot of our Christian community and Christian singles are trying to make different decisions regarding their life and is trying to conduct themselves in a different way in order to have a different outcome. That's what I see predominantly going on across the culture right now and across the social media. So when I think of when it says fight the flesh, it's basically trying to make better decisions, trying to put yourself in better circumstances that will yield to dividends. Meaning you're not making worldly or fleshly choices that is going to put you in a position to compromise your values, your morals, and the way you're trying to conduct yourself in your single stage. Because whether we like it or not, I think singleness is also a ministry. I think it's a valuable time in your life when you're supposed to be serving, when you're supposed to be loving on your family, growing as an individual, becoming self-aware as much as you possibly can. So that way, when your spouse or wherever it is come along, you are a whole person. That's how I see it. So is again, for me, fighting the flesh is trying to make the best possible decision it is to put yourself in a better place of not always having to be on your knees asking for forgiveness. That's basically the way I see it. Like I tell the people all the time. I try to make whatever it is that I need to go talk to the Lord about a big thing, because I'm not going to be on the pearly gates trying to confess for foolishness. That's just not my world and my mindset or my life. So that's what I got to say, Akan. I don't know what Dr. OJ thinks,
Oh,
but and I have more to say, but I'll share later. I'll let somebody else go.
Yeah, fighting the flesh. Like I said, I came with my pen ready to write some notes because I need help. No, well, I'm just joking. But here's the thing, right? I was at a girlfriend's dinner this week, and some of the women in my community, beautiful, very diverse, Caucasian, Hispanic, and then I'm the black one in the group, and they're like, "Hey, Dr. O, have you ever, tried gummies or any like, other than the social drinking that we do from time to time?" And I'm like, honestly, I've never smoked weed. I have never eaten a gummy. I have never tried any type of weird substance. I don't want to say weird, but any chemical substance, drug enhancement and things like that. And they looked at me like it was really, really weird for my age and I don't know. But I have never tried it. I've just been so scared of the impact that it will have on my life. And maybe just because of the way I was raised and just having this underlying fear of God that, man, I don't know how I'm going to come back from this. What if I become a drug addict? What if I really just get down this road and I just don't have a way to find my way back? Like those thoughts just really keep ringing in my head, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. So I've never tried it. So yeah, fighting the flesh can be really hard, especially in a world where it's become normal to do certain things, like even the things back in the day growing up where you would raise your eyebrow and be like, oh my God, that should not even be heard. Now it's a norm. It's absolutely normal. So we live in a very, very interesting time, and the times continue to evolve. And I really don't see them going backwards where values and ethics and integrity and things like that become better. I honestly don't. Not as a matter of being just giving up on society, but just the reality of the times that we're living in. So, how does one hold up a touch of integrity and say, I'm going to be the person to not do this? Or even for me as a single mom of children in relationships where it's like, oh, why are you abstaining, or why are you being, what's that thing, why are you not wanting to have sex because you've had children, what's the big deal? So you get asked those things, and you look like a crazy person in a world where everybody doing the wrong thing, we're the crazy ones, but the people trying to do the right things now are seen as the crazy ones, like you're weird, you're just a weirdo. And people try to make you feel like there's something wrong with you just because you're holding on to certain values. So yeah, this is a very interesting time for people to see how can they really, really hold on to that touch, that little light that is still there before the darkness snatches it out.
Right. Well, thank you so much for your perspective, ladies. I love it. I love it. I love it. So for me, when it comes to finding a flesh, first thing that comes to mind is, I think of us humans as, first of all, in our being, in our natural beings, like, right? I know right now we're talking more in the context of relationship, but first of
Mhm.
all, it's like, fighting you're fighting the flesh in terms of like there's a lot of things that you need to battle from, like your natural state, like your sometimes it might be from your hormones, it might be from your genes. And so there's that part. And it's funny you talked about what to do and how to know, but I feel like sometimes we even know what to do, but we don't do them. I think, and I feel like there's a difference between not knowing, and then there's the difference between knowing and not actually doing it, right? So basically, then that comes the question of will. Like, how do you strengthen your will to be able to, not do the things that do not serve you well? And I
Mhm.
think for me, like when it comes to this conversation, what comes to me is the fact that whatever you do concerning you as a person, you there's going to be either rewards or there's going to be consequences. And I think that a lot of times that um, these two concepts that I mentioned exist as a gray area or as an invisible thing for a lot of people, because we don't really think about it like, okay, what is going to be this? But just probably because we, like I said, we are also still battling with our natural, you know like maybe want for these things that we want to do, or what we want to do. So I think it actually, for me, I would say I think it actually does take work. It actually takes time. Like you have to actually get into a state where you actually know first, know what to do, and then build the will to be able to not do the things that do not serve you well. you know but when it comes to things like fighting the flesh too, there's something I want to talk about, which is like, I mean, you can't quite leave out like things like addiction, right? I mean, even in relationships, there can be behaviors
Mhm.
that you can actually pick up and be addicted to, knowingly or unknowingly. Is that something that you ladies want to like talk on a little bit? Dr. Oja, I'll start with you first.
Yeah, codependency is a form of addiction. When people are there's some people that are addicted to being in relationships. They really cannot be in a space where they are just by themselves. And this goes for both men and women. That's where, the other, I think it was, I saw a video on social media that was talking about, women, we get out of relationships, marriages, especially when you're talking about divorce. Women will get out of the divorce and kind of be retrospective. They want to heal, they want to find out what went wrong. Not saying this is for the 100% population, but for the most part, right? We want to retrospect and think about what's happening and how did we get where we are. And then we take some time to heal. So we kind of heal backwards. So that way, when we're ready and we're whole and we're ready to get back in relationships, we're semi in a good place. Not always. And then men generally have been found to heal forward. Like
Hmm.
they're out of a relationship, they want to get to the next person, they want to get to the next. That's why you see Divorced men typically marry faster. They get back in the marriage saddle. For those who choose to, they do it a lot faster. And then you see that women take a while, and some of them would even say, okay, let me focus on raising my kids. So that way, once that's done, then I can now reprioritize my attention into getting into a relationship. Men, they're not like that. Like, okay, where's the next one? So there is addiction when it comes to relationships where people are so codependent on other people. They always have to be in the company of others. That is a problem in itself. That's what I have found. And I guess we can talk about how can people kind of find a way to heal themselves by themselves, because in America today, one of the highest causes of clinical depression is loneliness, being alone. A lot of people complain about loneliness, even though we are really surrounded so much more by people, social media interactions, in person events, and things like that. But a lot of people are still very lonely, and they go into a state of depression. And of course,
Hmm.
in some cases, cross over to suicidal thoughts and attempts and things like that. So those people always want to be with someone. But how can we learn as a society to figure out a way to get healed and whole so that we can have healthy relationships? Because one thing I keep telling myself is if I cannot manage to enjoy my company and really build a strong relationship with myself, being married to someone is not going to automatically solve that. I don't think it's going to solve that problem for me. So over the years, I have built a culture of just learning and loving to be by myself with myself. I have such a healthy lonesome relationship with me. Like I'm absolutely in love with myself, not to a negative standpoint, although that could also be a problem where you are so independent and you're so like by yourself. That is an addiction. So there's the addiction of being dependent and there's the addiction of being independent, where you are so in love with being alone that it's hard for you to now cultivate healthy relationships with people. Both extremes are not good. Both extremes are bad. It's being able to find a balance in between where alone you're good, with people you're good. Yeah, that's it.
Hmm. Stacy, you wanna go?
Oh, that's a very interesting perspective, Dr. OJ. I guess when it comes to the codependence, because I did know that there are some people that have a codependency tendency where they are just not, they cannot possibly be alone ever. It's like
Hmm.
you telling them to, you just get out of a relationship, you need time to breathe is like curse words for some people. So no, honestly, I and I've been put in that position before. Like I knew um the ink was even, well, the ink wasn't even applied to the paper yet. I mean, literally they just split up. And this was a really good friend of mine, both couples actually. That was what made it weird. Well, I wasn't really good friends with the wife, I was more good friends with the husband, but
Hmm.
I knew both of them. And like the minute she decided the marriage was over, and this was like 2 weeks later, he was like trying to figure out if I would even entertain getting into a relationship with him. And I was like, no. Like, first of all, I don't even think I don't even think you took the time to even think about what caused the ending of your marriage, or even if it's something you want to fight for or try to get her back, even if she's saying no. But either way, I digress. But and he was married within maybe 6 months after the divorce. He was back in, he found somebody else, I guess, to agree, because I wasn't entertaining it. And he was married maybe within less than a year of of the divorce. So I completely get that, Dr. OJ. But when it comes to, I guess, fighting the flesh, I'm gonna steal Akan's famous word, although he's sitting right here, so it's not necessarily stealing, about being self-aware.
Oh, yeah.
So perspective, and so self-awareness too is also one of the thing in fighting the flesh, because there's a few
Mhm.
couple of things too, practical things you can do in your life in order to, let me just preface this, guys, by saying this is conversation we're having is no way, shape, or form from a judgment perspective. We are just merely giving our perspective on the practical the challenges we know that people are having in their singleness or in their dating um, time right now, which everybody knows we all have to make different decisions while you're single, while you're dating, as I said, in order for you to reap fruits of your labor. And for some people, that is abstinence is a big thing right now. And it's not just for women, it's also for men, because I've met men that
Mm-hmm.
decided that during their single process or during this whatever point of time in their life, they're going to observe abstinence and they're going to observe isolation because they think that they need to focus on certain things in order to actually get the outcome that they want. So, but when in doing that, I think it's also the time that we face the most challenging time in our singleness. Is like everything you can think of comes out of the woodwork. All the people you don't want to hear from all of a sudden is texting you, all of a sudden is calling you, all of a sudden all the girls them is hitting you up and everybody's attracted to you all of a sudden. I'm telling you, it never fails. And everybody on here, I'm sure, has have a moment like this in life and you're trying to figure like,
Yeah.
God, what is going on? Where all of these people are coming from all of a sudden? It's like once you decide to make a conscious decision and you and God is good, you
Mm-hmm.
over here minding your business, drinking your water, saying your prayer, going to church, serving up, here comes everybody that you never knew,
Yep.
you didn't want, they, anyways. So I'm saying when these things starts to happen, and now this is a time when that self-awareness comes in. You have to resist the urge
Mm-hmm.
to say there's a reason why I didn't date you, I broke up with you, there's a reason why things didn't
Mm-hmm.
work out, I need to block you, I need to delete your number, and I need to get off social media, whatever the things them that you need to do, because you are, it is like a ripple effect. I don't know, some part of the other universe is listening. They, my mom always say, while you're praying, just remember, it's not God, only God listening to you. There's other some elements that are listening. So it's like you come under this attack, like something
Mm,
is trying to say, let me see how strong he is. Let me see how strong she is. So, you know, that self
Mm-hmm.
awareness is really good. And also being able to be a discerning of what is happening to in this stage when all
mm,
of these floodgates are starting to happen and all of these people are showing up or popping up and reoccurring at what you do in text, you know, people you haven't heard from in months and all of these things. So try to be self-aware, guys. Try to be discerning. Stay prayed up because sometimes that's what you're actually going to need to have the strength that you're going to need
Yeah.
to say, I'm not going to go here. You're going to refuse the invitation, whether it's you know, sometimes they will say, oh, what harm it is in going out for a drink or getting out of the house or going to meet up with
mm,
somebody. Sometimes that going out for a drink and just getting out of the house is maybe not the best decision in the world, especially if
Mm-hmm.
you know that this person or this situation or environment is where you're the most weakest. That's when I say you
mm,
say no. This being self-aware, being honest with yourself to say, can I trust myself in this environment? Can I trust myself around this person? And if the answer is no,
Yeah.
then I say do not go, don't answer the phone calls, and yeah. So
mm,
that's what I have to say. I just wanted to
Now,
give some little practicalities and to bring it down to simple terms for people to what I think about when I think about fighting the flesh, especially in your singleness, because I know everybody on
mm.
planet Earth can relate to that. It's like the floodgate open and everybody start coming in the moment you make a decision about your life.
Wow, Stacy, you're so right. Yeah, and self-awareness, I don't think you can hit that point on the head enough. And in connection to what you said about self-awareness, it's like it's self-awareness that allows you to know if the reason why you are being addicted to something is because of an insecurity, right?
Mm-hmm.
mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times it might just be an insecurity.
Yeah.
It might be something, it might be an insecurity that you need, and that's what you're doing. And then another thing that I want to talk about when it comes to that is sometimes you might just be addicted to attention.
Yes.
It's like some people get into these things like you become an attention seeker. And once there's no attention, it becomes a problem. And that pushes you to doing a whole lot of other things that are,
Mm-hmm.
not good for you and knowing. So it's just I think we need to really I think that point needs to be really hit on the head, about like, fighting the flesh and just knowing and one thing that I want to acknowledge like when we're talking about this is because me I like to be also practical like you too, Stacy, is I always tell myself like it's hard.
It is.
Like
It is.
because I feel like when we have these conversations, people just want to just go up. Oh no, I'm chilling. Life. God. I mean, God is great and everything, but like, I think we should have more of these conversations of like, yo, this thing is hard. Like, it's hard right now to not have someone to hug at night. Like, it's hard right now to sleep on my bed alone. It's hard right now. Now I have acknowledged that it is hard, because it is that awareness that allows me, okay, now I know this is
Mm-hmm.
lacking. Because I feel like a lot of people, they get caught off guard because they don't really acknowledge and really, and I think this is also connected to self-awareness, like, what is really going on? What
Mm-hmm.
do I need? And this thing that I need, what is the implication of what I need?
Yes.
Is it a short term, fulfillment? Is it good for me long term? Is there an economic benefit to it? Is this taking me off of my purpose? Is this taking me off of where I'm going to? Right? Is there another way for me to calm this urge that I have right now? Do I need to be with friends? Do I need to join a book club? Do I need to, like, schedule time with my friends? I think Stacey, I said something with you about the popular actor who was saying he had to schedule time because of loneliness.
Yes.
Had to schedule time with
Yeah, I
friends.
sent you that
He had to put it
recording.
because he
Yes.
does it as a job. Yeah, you sent it to me, and because and that was a way of helping him, because now you become less lonely. So I think same thing. This still falls back to, you have to be intentional. You
Mm-hmm.
have to be
Mm-hmm.
intentional in acknowledging, intentional in knowing, and and then sort of like going after those things and stuff. And but like I said, that to say, like, it's never easy, because and all of us, we have different strengths, and we have
Mm-hmm.
different weaknesses and stuff. And I think also it's like sometimes getting to that place. So like for me, the question would be like, okay, so what if you don't even know what's going on? What would be the way to sort of like, because sometimes you can say you want to know. All this what we're saying now is because we have a certain level of awareness,
Of
right?
course.
But how can I like get myself to sort of like, how can I steer myself to the direction that will allow me to find out what the problem is? How can I do
So,
that?
it's
Well,
like you
first,
said, it's
is
just
do
having a
you have to
very.
address that there is a problem, though?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to. Sorry, Stacey, did you want to go?
No, go ahead, Dr. OJ.
Okay. Yeah, so just understanding that there's a problem. Like I can said, like this thing is hard. Like even I mean, of course we always use ourselves as, because the part of being on a podcast and sharing stories is you want to be able to share with your audience your vulnerabilities, because you're trying to tap into the
Mm,
awareness of people who are hopefully going through some of the things that you've been through, and this podcast can help them. For me, as a single mom, divorced 8 years, literally every time I look at myself and I'm like, why am I still single? Do I like really have that much of a problem that I can't just settle down again for the second time? Like seriously, I asked myself that
yeah.
question. And that question has led me to sometimes in the past conceding to situations that I know that might not be in my best interest. And I had
Yeah.
to come out of that through self-growth, self-awareness, and really just wanting to do what God wanted me. Because I said something to someone today. I said, look, on everybody's journey, you will encounter God at some point in time. Everybody will encounter God. Now, that encounter looks different for everyone. And when you have that, your own encounter with God, it's going to be that make or break moment where you're going to have to make certain hard decisions, like, are you all in or are you all out? Or are you still going to be doing this dance of, I'm here today, I'm there tomorrow. I'm here today, I'm there tomorrow. But even if it's not, let's not focus on God or spirituality. Let's look at our humanity, choices that you make, decisions that you make, and you can actually look at the patterns of the outcomes of these relationships, of these choices. You're having the one night stands, you're having the short term relationships, you're in the situationships. How do they serve you? How do you come out on the other end of those things? How do they make you feel? Now, if you look at it like, okay, was it really worth it for you in the long run? And where you are today, as far as you've come, how have those things really served you till where you are today? For me, I had to do a whole lot of that soul searching, which we do from time to time. But talking about where I am today, I really had to do a whole lot of soul searching. Say, you know what? Alone is good, honestly, for however long it's going to persist. I don't know. Is it scary? Heck yeah. Do I enjoy being alone by myself? No, I'm a social butterfly. I'm a relationship person. I like to be with people, around people.
Mm,
But I also know that I want to have that purpose centered, That's very intentional type of relationship that will not require me to seek out something else. And that way, my journey can go on the trajectory that it needs to go consistently towards wherever I need to get to. Rather than now you say, oh, this short-term thing, let me just have this. It's okay. It checks one, two boxes. Let me just check those two boxes for now and hold on to it. For the time being, let it serve its purpose. Then I let it go. But then there's parts of me that while I chose not to control my flesh, while I chose not to control my urges, while I chose not to rein in myself, there's parts of me that are negatively impacted from those short-term fixes that I settled for, settled here, settled there. So I don't want to do that anymore. So for me, fighting the flesh looks like just being able to tell yourself the truth that how has this served me till now? Like there are people, there are
Yeah.
relationships that you've been in and you kind of let go. You knew that it was wrong, it was bad. But then, when those moments of loneliness creeps in, does anybody ever feel that says that you're now looking at it like they were not actually that bad, maybe it's me that was not patient enough. Maybe I should have handled it. Maybe if I call them and have this conversation, maybe we could approach it differently. You start justifying the foolishness when you know that thing was bad, like it was bad on all levels. Like it was good that you walked away. But when the flesh is calling, like, okay, maybe I should have, then we start to justify. So that's my own reality. That's my own, experience from that fight in the flesh. And the decisions and the choices that I
Mm.
have made is really knowing that who do I want to be? Who do I want to become? I want to become the person that God intends for me to become so that He can do what He needs to do with my life. And in order for that to happen, all these things have to go. They have to. Flesh crying out, loneliness crying out, everything crying out, good. But then God also helped me because what I now realized is, like Stacy said, creating these little pockets of different things like interests. Now I have a prayer group. We meet up every day. I look forward to that. Beautiful women, sisters that I love spending time in prayer with. That has filled some type of space for me. And I'm like, okay. And then now in my community, with my own intention, I've gotten to know a lot of amazing women in my community. There's like a group of 10 of us. And now it's like they've brought me into the circle. They've lived here longer than me. And now I'm part of that women's group. And they get together once a month and we have this group text. For me, that's a healthy space whereby it's not the relationship that I will have, but then it allows me to be productive in life. And it takes me away from the pitfalls of trying to see, oh, Saturday, who am I hanging out with Saturday? Who's going to come take me out on a date? Who's going to come? That kind of thing. That's no longer there. So, yeah, that's what I have
Mm.
done. Like you said, finding those things that are productive, going in the direction I know God wants me to go with the right people until eventually, if He chooses to change my situation from being single to being married, that will happen. But yeah, it's hard. It is hard. Trust me.
Yeah.
Dr. OJ, just to give you language for the one of the things you said. So the culture term is spinning the block when you're trying to make the person
Mm.
figure out, when you're trying to convince yourself or talk yourself into maybe they weren't so bad. Maybe it was me. I could have worked on this. I could have worked on that. Yeah. So the term for it in the culture is spinning the block. That's what it's called. You're trying to spin the block
No,
Wow.
again.
I
I'm a
just learned a
writer.
new thing today.
Yeah.
I'm a
So
writer.
you can add that one to your
Woo.
you can add that to your notes.
Yeah, of
I'm at it.
course.
I'm adding it. I
but
love it.
but
But
yeah,
it's
it
hard. It
is
is
the
hard.
but yeah, guys, it is very difficult. It's not easy. It's not easy being disciplined. It's not easy developing a pattern for your life. It's not easy developing strategy, guys, and actually making certain decisions, as I said, because I think for a lot of us, where the self-awareness comes in is when you start to look at your life. You start to do introspection. You start to do self-reflection, and you're like, okay, what have I accomplished so far? What have these habits done to my life this far? What has been the outcome? Have I seen dividends from making certain choices? developing certain behaviors, habits, putting myself in certain companies and stuff like that. And I think that's where a lot of it come from. And it's not easy to make these choices. It's not easy to start to take introspection and look at yourself and try to say, okay, I need to cut this out. So even if it's and even changing your appetite for things, it could be food too, your workout routine,
Mm-hmm.
whatever result you're trying to see in your life, you have to first look at the things you're currently doing. How is that
Mm-hmm.
coming out? Is it coming out for the better? Am I seeing progress? Is the needle being pushed forward, or am I just stuck here? And then you have to pivot. You have to then make alterations. Then you have to take things away, and you have to then add healthier and different stuff, like Dr. J was talking about her group. And I've talked about this a million times on our show about building community, because it doesn't matter even if you're married or single or dating or in between, wherever your category you fall in, nobody is ever going to meet all the needs that you have in your life. So that's why community is
Mm-hmm.
important. I am part of a book
Hmm.
club. We meet once a month. I try to keep myself very focused as much as I possibly can by reading, listening to different podcasts, doing research.
Yeah.
I once a month I have my sisters and a couple of other girlfriends over, and some of them are married, yes, but I thought that it's not just us being a community as single women, but also even for our married friends. Because when life gets busy with husband and children and all the domestic responsibility that you have, sometimes you just need a space where you can let your hair down, where even if it's a couple of
Yeah.
hours without the husband calling for you for something, the children calling for you for something. So you
Yeah.
need that, as well as our men also need those type of support too. So so that was my intentional um trying to create a space where we can all just let our ear down and just breathe for a moment sometimes, and just relax and just forget about the work, forget about everybody that needs us, and just spend a little bit of quality time with yourself. And some people may call it self-care, whatever word you want to give it. I call it us just building each other up in sisterhood, is what I call it.
Mm. I agree. I agree with you, Stacy. I agree with you, Dr. OJ. Um, what you guys, you're just hitting the nail on the head. And it's like it's not very easy, just moving and like knowing. And then I think you're talking about like knowing exactly the things that you want. So for example,
Mm-hmm.
your podcast or whatever you listen to, you want to listen to things that are taking you to the direction that you are expecting.
Yes, exactly.
So
Mm-hmm.
like for me, because I feel like sometimes there's this tendency to just, okay, I'm probably not going to do this, but then I'm not actively moving in the direction that I want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to get married, but you're not listening to any tapes on marriage. You're not talking to people who have been married and had success in marriage. You're not talking to people who have had challenges in marriages. You're not talking to people who have even had divorces to actually know why and what is going on. And you're
Yeah.
just there, and then something comes, loops you in. And that also sort of drives me to another point, which is the power of influence. I mean, it's good when you really exist alone and everything, but let's not talk about like, we're not even talking about at this point maybe staying away from having sex or whatever. But now you now meet someone, you know it's I always say it's always harder to have restraint, because maybe you like this person more and everything. It now becomes the influence of that person that makes it harder for you to be able to actually not do the things that you want to do, you know. And then, there's, for example, let's say even with dating, now there's report that there's a even with the dating app, there's a fatigue of dating, and you haven't dated for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
then eventually you come and meet this person, and this person just seems to appealing and has all these things going on, and then all of a sudden that red flag pops up, and then it's like sort of to things that you don't want to do, or things that you're not going to do, and then now you're like trying to argue. So I think it's actually tougher when you have someone, and when I talk of influence too, which is something that I've also discovered, apart from you not wanting to be something, if you spend time more with someone, there's more likelihood for the person to actually influence your actions, regardless of you saying no, I don't want to do. If you continuously talk and you continuously, so I think for me that's like one of like the toughest things, is like I can even do some of these things. It's not easy, but alone. But when you now have someone involved, it becomes even harder for you to. I mean, do you guys want to share some perspective on that? You ladies want to share some perspective on that?
what I would say with that is, if you haven't built yourself strong enough alone, when somebody comes in, you're more susceptible to being influenced by them, especially if they have values. I mean, because someone said, I heard this and I thought it was so cute, that dating and relationship is an interview, not a time. It's a time for interview, not a time for intercourse. So
Mm.
understand, yeah, I loved it. I loved it so much. I thought, whoa,
Interview, not a time for intercourse. So shit.
intercourse, yeah, because it's a time for you to really learn. Because when, imagine if you're interviewing, because when you look at interviewing someone for being your life partner, that is the most
Mm,
important CEO level type of employment you're going to give them for a lifetime. They're not going to have the option to resign, retire, or back out of it. So you want to make sure that they're caught up for this. So now, when, if you're not really built up with the right mindset, and for me, I think even being divorced has been a blessing, because it has allowed me
mm,
to step out of the frame. And I had, of course, I've had my stumbling moments, but then it's also allowed me to do so much work on myself. Like, I'm doing like
mm,
God type of work, like just taking the time to just, okay, even especially when I start asking questions like, it's 8 years, my divorce. I'm not bitter. I'm not angry. I'm not still, torn into pieces. Why am I still single? And then the only thing that I keep getting back is, okay, well, God, maybe there's still some more work to be done. Let's do it. What version of me is still not showing up? What version of me haven't I evolved into? So because I'm in that space of wanting to be more and do more and just be the best version, I'm always in that work mode, work mode. So when somebody comes
mm,
in, it's easy for me to quickly interview them from, of course, interaction, conversations, and even observing their consistency, their commitment, and all of these things. So whereby I can say, oh, your probation period, this is what it was, the evaluation, I don't think we can move on with this situation. It's easy for me to do that, detach and move on. So yeah, so who you become before that person comes in is important. If you're not able to fight the flesh, like, okay, there was a season, just
mm,
vulnerability, there was a season in my singleness journey where sex toys was an option. I never knew what sex toys were. When I was married for almost 10 years, I was a very sheltered kid, got married early, started having kids right away. I didn't even know anything about that. Anyway, fast forward, married, now divorced, and all of a sudden I have friends who were coming to me saying, oh, well, now you're single, this is an option. I'm like, what is this? It took a while for me to wrap my head around it. Eventually I wrapped my head
mm,
around it and I told myself, well, this is a safe option. I'm not out there, I'm not doing this. But eventually, over the years, God just, eventually I started understanding that that wasn't even right for me to concede to in the first place, because it's what I said earlier. You are either in, or you're all in with God, or you're not. You can't be this and that. You can't say, oh, I'm celibate, I'm single, but I'm using sex toys to pleasure myself. I'm sorry, some people might not agree. They might say it's a different kind of thing, but really it is, because there is an impact to that, hormonally and all of that for you. So I had to really come to the
mm,
point where, while I subscribed to it and I thought it was a solution for a while, and hopefully my children can
mm,
hear me right now, but eventually I realized, I don't think God wants me down this road. I really need to stay focused. So I really had to go down the road where I'm understanding and talking to God and say, okay, well, if this is not the path, I'm going to let it go. So what's the option? Help me to rein in my desires. Help me to redirect my energy. Help me to refocus my mind. And over time, those things just sort of went away. And I'm like, now people send me weird stuff. And of course, like Stacy said, once you commit to working with God, the devil will send his best soldiers at you. He will send them. He will send his best soldiers at you and they will come. And I'm like, oh my God, okay. There's some people that message me now. Once I see their name, I don't even kind of read the message. I just like, okay,
yeah.
delete. Oh, delete. Okay, delete. Okay. We're not looking at that. We're not watching that. We're not opening those doors. We're not opening those gates. So if you're not strong enough now, you're not going to be strong enough when someone comes into your life. That's just the way I look at it.
Mm. Stacy.
So it's funny, Dr. OJ said, but it's true though. I'm sure, as I said, everybody can relate. It's like all of a sudden everybody out of the woodwork has suddenly appeared. But you were saying, Akan said something about influence, and there's a popular saying, is they call him Et, but his correct name is Eric Thompson. He's one of those
Oh yeah,
great
I listen to him a
motivational,
lot. Yeah,
yeah, motivational
the
speaker.
hip
I
hop
don't
preacher. Yeah.
Right. I don't know if the famous quote is originated with him or it came from somewhere else, where he says, "If you hang around six broke people, you will be the seventh." So influence is important about the people you surround yourself
Yeah.
around. To build you up. You need that. We all need that community, but it also has to be the right community. It has to be the
Yes.
community that is feeding you. It has to be the community that is
Mm.
pushing you forward. It also has to be the community that is encouraging you, the community that wants to see you grow and become better. If you are a man that has self-discipline, is a man that decide you want to live your life and conduct yourself a certain type of way, then I hardly doubt your boys that are going out every night, with random women, drinking it up, smoking it up, partying up, living it up, whatever they want to call it, all the nuance that words you can think of, is not probably the people you want to be around. And back to the podcast that Khan had sent to me, and I messaged him back and was like, I've been listening to this. It's the full episode because he sent me just a clip. Is on BET. It's that new podcast or that new show with
Mm.
Kirk Franklin. There is also the other gospel singer that is on there, and that other guy that I really like.
Yeah.
He's actually single too. I should probably look him up. No, I won't do that. Anyways, what's his name? Akan. It's the bigger guy. It's he
Yeah,
is
yeah.
well
He's
known
really popular. Yeah, yeah.
Why am I
I've
not
heard
getting
about
this
him.
in the
podcast? Why am I not
industry,
being
but
sent this
he is.
podcast?
I
Eh?
can't hear
I
you, Dr.
cannot
OJ.
expect
What?
you. I told you both I was suspecting both of you. Why am I not getting this podcast? Like, I don't like what's going on. Why am I being
We'll,
left out of
we'll
this?
share with you. Yeah,
Eh?
we'll share with
No,
you.
no,
You're always so busy.
he sent me a clip, and it's
I
Always
don't
because
so
have
no,
all the
busy.
clip.
it's be,
I want the clip
here's
too.
the thing, Dr.
People
OJ. We
can
talk
mute it.
about
Could you please
community.
come and help me talk
And
to them?
most
Oh,
of the time,
uh-huh.
when Akan and I have conversation, it's always about whether I'm feeding him, he's feeding me, you're encouraging people. So he sent me
I
a
want to
clip,
fit. I want to
and I
be
was
fed
like,
too.
I was already watching that. There's a full episode to that clip, and he goes, "There is," and I'm like, "Yes." So
I
I
want to.
send him the full
Stacy, I
episode so
don't
he
care.
can
I want to
watch
be
it,
fed too,
so that
Stacy.
you
And I
realize
want to be
it's a
fed
whole
too.
thing. It's not just that one little clip.
Okay, y'all need to look me. First of all, I want to be fed, Stacy. I
Oh, I
want to be
can't
fed.
hear Dr. OJ.
Oh, y'all can. Okay, okay. She can't hear me. Singles Connect community. Y'all come.
No, say it again, Dr.
Dr.
OJ,
OJ,
because
don't
you're.
worry, we share. Dr. OJ, you're always busy. You know you have a lot of stuff going on.
What
So
is that? You see life. You see
That is
life.
true.
but
People of the
Nobody.
world. People of the
but
world.
lady,
You know,
I want to say so.
you
So
sound like those men that come into my life and they're like, I really like you, but you seem to have a lot going on. And I'm like, yes, because you're not the one for me. Go away. Keep
no,
moving.
no, we'll get to your level. We'll get to your level soon. But
Which level?
hearing what you what you ladies have said is very, is very insightful. But the culture says, that like if especially based on what's going on and with the world the war is going, that how do you go about this word of like compromise, like, and the reason why I'm saying this is because we're talking about this in the context of relationship, right? And
Yes.
sometimes it really doesn't be the people. Sometimes we even get control of like the things around us. It still, I'm still really pinning on you meeting someone, and then the energy is so strong that it wants to get you to compromise. How do you go about that? Like, how do you go about this thing of compromise? Because this is related to the flesh, like, in you finding the flesh of where you're not supposed. How do you go about this topic, this thing of compromise?
Can I go first?
Sure, sure.
Oh God, because I
So
didn't have
I
anything
don't
to that.
even
I'm
know
thinking in my
so
head like
much as
I'm the wrong person for that.
well, just for full transparency and vulnerability here, I don't even know, Akan, if it's so much as compromise, because
Mm,
I I think I can honestly say I've only ever been in one place in my life where I I felt, and I don't know that I compromise, because sometimes I think singles make certain decision too out of a place of hurt, or out of a place of, because all of you, because you've been picking all the wrong people for so long, now all of a sudden you decide that I'm going to shut up shop, or shop close. That's an island term. Even
Mm.
though it's not necessarily that you're closing the shop because you and God have come to an agreement, or you say, I'm doing this because I want to improve my spiritual life, I want to grow, or I think this is a discipline that I need to practice in my life right now. You just decided that because it's coming from a place of more hurt, it's coming from more of a place of trauma than it is coming from a place of I wanting to grow. So
Mm.
for me, I don't think um, when I was, we weren't allowed to date when I was a teenager. That was a no no for my mom. My mom was a very strict mom. And so when I got into my 20s and you're starting to think about companion and whatever it is,
Mhm.
I'm also a church girl, raised in the church my whole life. I wanted to wait for marriage. Now, I did not end up waiting, but that was my whole existence up until I was 29 years old. And when I made that decision, that's okay, I'm tired of waiting for something that seemed like it's never going to happen. That was my number one reason. It was because I felt like I saw everybody else was getting married, everybody else was getting picked. And I'm trying to figure out, like, so what it is that you're waiting for? Like, because I felt like I was spending my whole life just waiting for something. So then you make a decision, and I'm not going to say that I regret any of the decisions that I make, because I think I learned valuable lessons in those decisions that I probably would not have learned any other way but that
Mm.
way. But it's like, so to, I guess, back to answer your question, Akan, I don't think it's a necessarily compromise. I think sometimes things happen to people, or you're in a different space in your life, or your mindset, or things that may occur that cause people to make certain decisions. and and I guess some people do compromise their, I guess that is the right word, compromise their values and their morals to do certain things. But I
Mm.
also think there's a bigger reason behind it sometimes too, other than just you're compromising. If you are compromising, it could be you're compromising because you don't want to be lonely. As Dr. OJ say, loneliness is one of the highest issues that we're facing in our country, although there's so much means of ways of people connecting. It could be that you are making that because you don't want the person to abandon you or to reject you, or it's to fill another void, or something. So I think there's other reasons behind the choices that you make. As I said, as for me, I felt like I was waiting for something that was never going to happen. So I just,
Mm.
and because I've always been a practical person, the pros and cons, I have a list of, should I do this or not do this, and whatever outweighs, it has to make sense for me in my mind. And I decided to throw out my list and throw all caution to the wind and actually do something spontaneous for the first time in my life, and that was what I did.
Hmm.
So
Dr.
that's my
OJ?
story. I'm done now.
Thank you,
Okay.
Stacy. Thank you so much.
So I can. What was the question again? Because I just went down Stacy's story and I
We're
lost
talking
track of.
about the issue. We're
Akon
talking
had
about
asked about compromise, like when
compromise.
if
Yeah.
you've
So
ever
compro. Oh my
compromised at
God.
a point in your life.
So that the way I look at compromise is this: you have to be able to justify the position you're taking, because when it comes to compromise, you can compromise for good or for bad. And people who are in relationships will tell you it's like it's just a whole big daily tussle of making compromises. And I spoke to a lady who's been married 3 times, and she said, you know what? I don't think marriage is for me. And now the best part about being single is I don't have to make compromises anymore. I can just do whatever I
Mm.
want, whenever I want, and the rest of my life. But I beg to differ, because even being alone, you make compromises all the time. You compromise
Mm.
whether you're going to focus on work and spend time with family. You compromise how you apply your resources. We learn to make those compromises based on whatever we've set on our priority scale, what's most important to us. So whether, even though she said, oh no, I don't have to make compromises, you still got to make compromises, because it's life is just a whole game of making compromises, because you have to just pick your priorities. What is the strongest position you want to hold on to? Is it that important to you? And now, when you're with someone, hopefully you get with someone who's able to walk through that process with you, to sometimes let you have what's on your priority list, and then you let them have what's on their priority list. And everybody kind of, it's always a give and take and on a rotation. So, compromising
Yeah.
is just an act where you really have to decide what your strongest position has to be. For me, the compromise I had made in the past was, well, they're here, they're nice to me, they're good to me, they check certain boxes. It might not be perfect because everybody tells you you can't have it all. Don't raise too high of a standard, because then you're never going to find someone who is Jesus's younger brother to fill that role. I literally had someone tell me that. And I'm like, I'm not looking for Jesus's younger brother. I'm just looking for a disciple of Jesus. Unfortunately, there's not too many of those walking around the earth anymore. So, understand, and making those compromises for me, I found that it just left me feeling not so great about myself in the end, even though I thought I was doing it for the right reasons. So now the compromise I'm making is now putting myself first and putting God first. So by putting myself first
Mm,
and putting God first, that means I get to say, okay, relationship or not, if it's not really fulfilling God's will for me,
mm.
because my agenda is
Yeah.
I want to get married. I just don't want to be in indefinite relationships. I'm your boyfriend, you're my girlfriend. I'm your boyfriend, you're my girlfriend. Year one, year two, we're doing that. That's not what I want. So because I know that's not what I want, I'm not going to settle for any propositions that is all it's offering. So my compromise is I'm going to be alone for a period of time, until such a time as someone comes along that fits that role, and now we can now go into the next phase of compromising to see how we can match
Mm.
or merge our lives together. So the compromise for me now is picking myself and doing what I believe would please God for me, and just push me in the right direction to be the best single mom person I need to be for myself and my community right now. So yeah, whether you're single or you're with somebody, compromise is the order of the day. That's life.
That's true. So, in other words, what I'm hearing is you can't completely do away with compromise, right? And
Mm-mm.
it's going to be there. But I think you should be able to compromise within your boundaries, within where you're headed to, within, you know, if it serves you. Because
Mhm.
eventually you're going to have to like compromise and everything. Because I know a lot of people will compromise and say that was the excuse. That's why, he did this or they did that. Or even like women, people where I've heard where, the partner fits a lot of the role, but then he comes in and says, but I want to bring somebody else into the bedroom. That's the one of the things for me. And you're like, wow, this person fits everything. They check on me, they do everything. But this is something that he just does. So I think there's compromising, and then there's also like having the actual boundaries that you just cannot cross. Like it's a non-negotiable.
Yes.
There's no compromise in that one. It's like a non-negotiable. That for me, that's how I'll go about it. And just literally talking about fight the flesh. I know we've not really mentioned it, but the God factor cannot be left out, because sometimes we as humans, we are so weak. At least I know
Mhm.
that for me myself. And sometimes you just need a higher power, and that higher power is God, like to help you really, you know, be still, and really just, know the things that you need, where you need to go, what you need to do, what you need to refuse, how you need to move, where you need to be around. Ultimately, it's best and it's better beneficial for us to do things that benefit us, and it's helping us grow as people. And I'm just using this to sort of like wind down this conversation to where we're going to. It's been a very great conversation. I forgot to mention, guys, please, on our page, follow all our links, send us an email if you want to reach out to us, what you think about our content. However, I'm gonna let Stacy, and then after that, Dr. OJ, you guys have any closing thoughts or things that you want to leave us with to just let us know more about this topic. I've learned so much just literally just listening to you ladies.
Well, what I will say, guys, is as Akan mentioned, the one of the key factor in giving you the strength that you need, and I guess just the focus and the discipline too, in order to get through whatever whatever fighting the flesh look like for you. Whether it's as I said, it's discipline in your eating, your working out, your growth with God, your spiritual walk, whatever discipline you're trying to implement in your life, it boils down to, as I said, you have to develop a strategy. That's number one. You have to develop a strategy. You have to develop a pattern of behavior that you actually put into practice every single day in order for you to see success. And for us here that are on the more on the spiritual side of things, the constant praying every day is a key factor for me. That's my number one source, and also trying to make sure that I stay locked in with everything, anything that I can use to feed my flesh. I try to feed my flesh more than, I mean, feed my spirit more than I feed my flesh. So
Mhm.
everything that I can possibly use to feed my spirit is what I do. I have my Bible apps. I listen to uplifting podcasts that is
Mhm.
always educating or teaching me in the direction of where I want to go, whether
Wow.
that is encouraging, about relationships, whether it's people that are married, people that have been divorced, what they have learned, the practical steps that you can take into improving certain things to change your mindset, how to look at life. That's it. Reading, as I said, community, and having an accountability partner. Akan touched on something before, that sometimes you cannot do this on your own too. So if
Yeah.
you're feeling weak or whatever it is, try to find that person in your life that you know can hold you accountable. Dr. OJ touched on addiction. Even in the addiction community, they have AA groups, and they also come with accountability partner. That person you can call the moment you feel like you're slipping, the moment you feel weak, to take your mind off things, and that can say, hey, let's go to a movie, let's go for a drive, let's go for a walk, let's go
Yeah.
work out, let's go jog or something, whatever the case may be, just to bring you back full circle, or to just take your mind off whatever it is happening. So I think in all areas of our life we can develop accountability, can have accountability partner to help us along the journey. So that's what I would offer in terms of perspective, or advice, however you want to look at it.
That's beautiful. Wow.
Yeah. So as we close up this topic today, fighting the flesh, one thing that comes to mind as we were kind of having this conversation is there's a Bible verse. I don't know I can't really tell you what it is off the top of my head, that talks about if you sow into the spirit, you will reap of the spirit. And if you sow into the flesh, you will
Mm-hmm.
reap of the flesh. It's very important
Mm.
for us to understand this. No matter how we chop and dice life, relationships, and everything, we are, first of all, spirit beings. So, understanding that you're a spiritual being and operating from that awareness is a good place to start. And if you
Mm.
want to really make the best choices and the best decisions, you have to figure out a way to make your spirit man very strong. Because if you're going to even have successful, healthy relationships and wholesome families, as we all hopefully want to have, we have to have such a strong spiritual base. Because all of the symptoms that we see, the joy, the happiness, the success in life, it's an indication of the state of our spiritual being, how we are in the spirit
Yeah.
realm. So if we're not investing in that to make that strong, to make that better, to really fit that and make it whatever it needs to be, then the outcomes are just what we're going to get. You're going to always fall. Like if they say you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So fighting the flesh starts from just building a very strong conviction, planting your flag like America did. And even though everybody's telling them this was not their land, they planted their flag here and they have owned it for over 100 years. So it's the same thing we all have to do. Plant your flag, whether you want to plant it in abstinence, plant it there and let it be there. Let everybody know
Mhm.
and stand for it. If you want to plant your flag in whatever else, just do you, but just have a strong
Good.
position on something. Because if you have a strong position on whatever your convictions are, whatever your compromises are, like Akan said, your non-negotiables. So when someone comes into that, that's not the time for you to try to figure out what your non-negotiable is. You already have to know how far beyond the boundaries you're going to push. So when a partner comes, he might check all the amazing boxes. He might be the best of everything you have ever seen. And then he comes with that one non-negotiable. And then you want to compromise and say, well, nobody's perfect. Look, listen, that means you never really believed in what you believed in order for you to make that one
Yeah.
compromise that could really end up changing the trajectory of your entire life. So it's important to know that
Hmm.
these are life and death choices that we're making, even when we want to talk about it from a general perspective. So, guys, let's keep fighting the flesh. Me, I'm still in the good fight of faith. Somebody help me, but God is helping us all.
Well, Hey, O'Shea, thank you so much, ladies. It's been a wonderful time. I think, just to add one point there, I think in this fight of the flesh, for the right thing, I think one of the most important things to do is have a strong self honesty. Self honesty will help you go far because it's your self honesty that's going to really help you navigate. So you have to be self honest with what is right and what is not. But thank you so much. Please follow us, on our platforms on Instagram. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this. Send us your feedback. Let us know what you think about what we said. Are there topics you want us to talk about? As our viewers, please send us an email. I will definitely respond to you, and we'll also debate on it and get back to you. Ladies, it's always a wonderful time having these discussions with you. As usual, we will be back next week, and we will have another discussion that we want to chop up. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and till next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye,
Bye,
guys.
everyone.